Hi guys, and welcome again to another episode of Ethical Investing with the Urban Hippie. Today we're going to talk about becoming Lord of the Manor, which is a goal that I think most of us would like to achieve. That is where you have passive income produced from property. So this dates back to our Westminster system of government. In our Westminster system of government, which is all Commonwealth nations are based on, and that is in the UK, they have two houses of Parliament. We have exactly the same thing here in Australia, and the upper house is called the House of Lords, and the lower house is called the House of Commons. When Eddie Barton became the first Prime Minister in Australia and we formed government, nobody wanted to be known as a commoner, so we'd be called the lower house, the House of Representatives. And we didn't have traditional lords in Australia, so the upper house, they got very imaginative with the name, and they just went back to the Roman Empire and called it the Senate. So instead of the House of Lords, our upper house is called the Senate, and instead of the House of Commons, our lower house is called the House of Representatives. And who are they representing? Commoners. And a commoner under our system of government is somebody who is a PAYG taxpayer. Now this is just my opinion, but I'm sure it'll make sense to everyone. So let's have a look at what a lord is, becoming Lord of the Manor, operating in the upper house. We've all heard that there's one rule for the wealthy and another one for everybody else, for all the rest of us commoners. Okay, and that's actually true, and it's our system of government, and it dates back over 2,600 years to the Roman Empire, and the system we're using today has been refined and introduced by the Westminster system, which is what we use today. So, a lord, there's many definitions, I guess, for a lord, what actually a lord is, but my one is very, very simple. A lord is somebody who has hereditary title to tenanted real estate. I say that again, a lord, and we've all seen Downton Abbey, is somebody that has tenanted or hereditary title, generational title, to tenanted real estate. So let's have a look at that in a little bit more detail. In Australia, if you don't own a home, under our Commonwealth system, the government will provide you with one. We're going to talk a little bit more about this in another episode, but basically that is through Department of Housing Commission. Now let's face it, most of us don't want to live in Housing Commission, and I don't know of anybody that really makes a plan for being there. Most people just, if they don't plan to be somewhere else, end up there. There is quite a long waiting list, so people are trying to get into Department of Housing. However, in Australia you have the opportunity to go out there and buy your own home, and the government in many different ways tries to help us do that. There's things like the First Home Buyers Grant and all these sorts of things. Again, we're going to discuss those a little bit more in detail in another episode. However, you have the opportunity in Australia to go out there and buy your own home. And when you do, because you've saved the Commonwealth of Australia and the taxpayers the cost of having to house you, you get to have your house tax-free. There's no state or federal taxes on your own home. So we don't have to pay land tax and we don't have to pay capital gains tax. In fact, when you pass away, your children or your next generation or your estate is passed on. There is no inheritance tax at the moment in Australia, and they get to have your house tax-free and can go for up to 2 years without having to pay capital gains tax beyond the sale. Or they then keep it and pass it on to the next generation. That's the way our system works. It gets better. If you decide to go and buy property that tenants live in, therefore saving the Commonwealth nation on the taxpayer the cost of having to house those people, you get to claim your tax benefits up front. Like a lord, you get to operate in the House of Lords, which in Australia is called the Senate. And that's where companies operate, and companies get to claim their tax breaks up front. So the moment that you go out and take advantage of tenanted real estate and become a property investor, and you put tenants in that property, you become a landlord. It's actually in our language. And you get all the rights and privileges of the House of Lords, our Senate. And we're going to go into a little bit more detail about that later. So those 3 tiers, if we cover off on those again, as a citizen, if you don't have a home, one will be provided for you in our Commonwealth nation. That's our social security network, Department of Housing. However, if you choose to go out there and buy your own property, therefore saving the taxpayer of our country the cost of having to house you, as the benefit, the balance in this, and everything I talk about is balance, you will get to have your house tax-free. No land tax, no capital gains tax. And if you go the next step and you decide to purchase investment property that is tenanted and you become a landlord, you get to take advantage of what we call the ATO's PAYG tax variation. So if you're a PAYG taxpayer or a commoner, your accountant can write to the ATO getting you a dispensation sent to your employer, allowing you to claim your tax breaks up front. You can look this up. It's called the ATO PAYG tax variance. We'll go into a little bit more details later, and if you want more information, see your accountant. Okay, what's important though is we have the right accountant, not a PAYG tax accountant, but a chartered accountant, and we'll look at the benefits of those and the balance in that later in another episode. So that's our 3-tier. If you don't have a home in our Commonwealth nation, we'll look after you. We'll give you a house through Housing Commission. If you want to choose your own home, because you've saved the taxpayer of Australia the cost of having to house you, you get it tax-free. No land tax, no capital gains tax. And if you decide to become an investor and go and buy property that's tenanted and you become a landlord, you get to claim your tax breaks up front. There's quite a little bit more complexity to it, and we'll discuss that on another day, but that's the benefit of living in a fantastic nation like Australia, which is a Commonwealth nation. Cheers guys, and I look forward to our next episode.